It was an ordinary morning in London, with the usual crowd of tourists gathering outside Buckingham Palace. The air was crisp, the sun breaking through the clouds, and the Union Jack fluttered gently above the grand gates. For many, especially Canadian visitors from older generations, witnessing the changing of the guard ceremony is a cherished experience. It's not just a tourist event, it's a moment steeped in centuries of tradition, discipline, and dignity. But on this particular day, what started as a peaceful morning quickly became an unforgettable incident, one that reminded everyone watching that respect is not just expected, it is earned. Among the cheerful visitors that morning was a man named Jagger Weston. An American wrestler in his early 30s, Jagger stood out, not just because of his towering frame or rugged appearance, but because of the energy he brought. Wearing a bold black shirt with the words "No Rules" across the chest, he didn't come to admire tradition. He came to mock it. He laughed loudly, pointing at the royal guards and calling them mannequins and robots. His friends stood nearby, visibly uncomfortable, while tourists nearby, including many older Canadians, looked on with disapproval. To them, this was not just rude, it was disgraceful. For those who grew up learning to respect symbols of authority and service, this man's antics were more than embarrassing. They felt like an insult. Standing before the palace that day was Guardsman Henry Blake. He was 28, a young soldier trained to remain still and stoic no matter what. With his tall bearskin hat, scarlet tunic, and polished boots, Henry looked every bit the picture of British honor. Even as Jagger taunted him, waving his arms, laughing and shouting, Henry didn't move. He didn't blink. His face remained blank, his discipline unbroken. Older onlookers in the crowd, many of them Canadian seniors, watched with quiet admiration. To them, Henry represented something more than a soldier. He was a symbol of how we once taught young people to behave with self-control, dignity, and honor. Despite growing disapproval from the crowd, Jagger pressed on. He climbed over the protective barrier, something every visitor knows is forbidden, and stood just inches from Henry's face. He waved his hands, he laughed in the guard's face. Then, in a moment of outrageous disrespect, he reached out and tugged on the guard's bearskin hat. The crowd gasped. That was the line. The moment everyone had feared. And then it happened. In a swift and precise motion, Guardsman Henry stepped forward. In one powerful movement, he struck Jagger with the butt of his rifle, sending the wrestler crashing to the ground. The sound of the impact echoed through the square. Phones shook in people's hands. Children screamed. Adults stood frozen. Jagger, who had moments ago been laughing, now lay on the cobblestones, clutching his side and groaning in pain. For a moment, Buckingham Palace fell silent. The cheerful mood had vanished. What had been mockery now looked like madness. But slowly, the mood shifted again. Many in the crowd began to nod. Some clapped, others muttered phrases like, "He deserved it." And that's what happens when you go too far. A few people questioned whether the guard's reaction was too much, but the majority, including many older Canadians, saw it as justified. This was not just about one guard. It was about honor, tradition, and the values we passed down through generations. Soon, royal security officers arrived and helped Jagger to his feet. He tried to defend himself, saying, "It was just a joke." But the officers weren't laughing. He was escorted out of the square and later arrested for violating royal protocol and disturbing the peace. The incident quickly went viral. Videos of the moment were shared by millions. News outlets around the world covered it with dramatic headlines like, "American Wrestler Slams Royal Guard, Gets Taken Down in Return." Many Canadians shared the video, adding their own thoughts. Comments flooded social media. That young man stood tall for tradition. Respect matters. This guy thought he was the star, but the guard was the true professional. Weeks later, the case went to court. The footage was played again. Witnesses testified. Medical reports confirmed Jagger's injuries were minor, but the emotional impact on the public was enormous. Henry, though injured, attended the trial with his arm in a sling. He said little, but his presence was powerful. The judge, an elderly man with years of wisdom, spoke firmly. This was not just a case of disruption, he said. It was a blatant attack on tradition, service, and honor. Jagger was sentenced to 10 months in a British prison. Back in Canada, the story struck a chord with many seniors. Talk shows, letters to the editor, and dinner table conversations all echoed the same theme. Respect isn't old-fashioned, it's essential. Some Canadians wrote letters of support to the Guard. A few even visited Buckingham Palace in the weeks that followed, just to say thank you. The royal family also sent Henry a letter of commendation, praising his professionalism and calm. To many Canadians, especially those raised with a deep appreciation for service, this incident reminded them of the values they've long held dear: respect, restraint, and responsibility. In the end, Jagger Weston faded into disgrace. His moment of viral fame became a lesson in what not to do. His name became associated not with strength, but with arrogance. Meanwhile, Henry Blake became a quiet hero. He didn't make speeches or seek attention. He simply returned to his post, injured but proud. For Canadians watching from afar, that image stayed in their minds. A young man standing tall, not because of his fists, but because of his self-control. In a world that often moves too fast, where tradition is sometimes seen as old-fashioned, stories like this remind us why these rituals matter. For seniors in Canada, who grew up valuing the quiet dignity of service, this moment brought back something important. It reminded us that real strength isn't loud or boastful. It's quiet. It's patient. It's earned through years of discipline and respect. The Royal Guard is not a tourist show. It is a living tradition. And sometimes it takes one foolish act to remind the world just how powerful that tradition really is.